Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network. Any opinions or comments made by any guest are their own, and they do not necessarily reflect any of the presenters or network's opinions.
Welcome to the world of your own terrifying imagination. Since the beginning of time, people have argued about the existence of ghosts. They've been called variously wraiths, specters, phantoms, apparitions, shadows, or shades. But everyone agrees that if there are such things as ghosts, they are the souls of dead persons haunting living persons.
This is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you for that introduction, Malcolm. As always, once again, thank you for all the messages that you send in. If you would like to contact me anytime, my email address is davidyoung2qn@yahoo.co.uk. That's davidyoung2qn, all one word, @yahoo.co.uk. Right, today's guest is going to be Mr. Kieran Woodhouse. He has been on the show before. He was on when his first book came out, An Introduction to Paranormal Investigation. But now he's got a new book out called Experiences of a Paranormal Investigator. So we should be talking to Kieran all about that. Also joining me on the show today as co-presenter is Juliette Gregson, making a return visit. So no doubt we should be finding out what Juliette's been up to as well. There's always a bit of mischief. Anyway, I do hope you find the show interesting. Hello Juliette, how are you doing?
I'm alright, thank you very much indeed, David. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Right, now, I think I've got a little bit of an apology to make, because this is not the show we should be doing, is it?
True.
We had a little bit of a mishap a couple of nights ago, when we were trying to record. This show should actually be the Malcolm Robinson show, but unfortunately something went wrong with the recording device when we were recording it, and it didn't work. So I'm blaming Juliette, because it always happens. I'm
blaming David.
It always happens when Juliette comes on the show. No. It's just one of those glitchy things, and that show will be coming out in a few weeks' time rather than this one. So we're doing now a show with Mr. Kieran Woodhouse, who's got a new book out, and it looks very interesting. It's only been out a couple of days, I believe, so this was pretty good. He's had one out before. So I don't think you know much about Kieran, do you, Juliette?
I don't. I've had a look on Amazon. I was just reading up about both books, so I think that'd be good ones to add to the collection. Like I said, it'd be interesting having a chat.
Yeah, he's a nice young man. He's been on the show before. I think it must have been at least a year ago he was on, when he was talking about his first book. So his second one looks quite exciting. So we'll get him on. What have you been getting? You've done anything interesting since our last cock-up?
Basically, went swimming. Yay.
Oh, did you?
That was nice. Yeah, I went
swimming today. In the sea in Blackpool?
Oh, good God, no, swimming baths. Banner times, if I'm being quite honest. Very nice, very clean, very organised. been doing some videos and pickies, doing my heritage bits and bobs, and making new contacts. So, and I'm busier than it's just ridiculous. I'm busy as it's like, I'll just take it nice and easy. No. The powers that be have a different idea.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, what's the weather been like that up there in Blackpool?
For the time being, it's lovely, it's sunny, but you've got that lovely sort of coastal wind that if anybody's been to the, any coastal town, you'll say, oh, it's lovely out, and then you think, oh, I wish I brought a hat and a coat.
Yeah. It's like the windy city of Britain, isn't it, really?
Yes. Lovely,
I'm on the sort of the easterly coast bit here, kind of southeasterly coast here. It is a bit cold in the morning when you go down to take the dogs out around the sort of because I live on an island now. You see, like a desert island. It's not actually a desert. It's not actually a desert island. It's more like a muddy island, but but it is all right though. It's quite nice. I like it anyway.
True. Right, shall we get Kieran on?
Oh, is you getting the whip out? Are you okay? Right, yeah. Let's get Kieran on then. Hello, Kieran. Welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Hope you're okay.
It's pleasure to have you back on. I think it was about over a year ago you were on. Around about a year anyway, something around about that. Yeah. But, thank you for coming on anyway. Now, you've not really met Juliette or spoken to her, so joining me today is Juliette Gregson. She's going to be talking to you with me. So, Juliette Gregson.
Hello.
Kieran Woodhouse.
Virtual handshake. Here's a thanks.
But, I know that, Juliette is very interested in the paranormal, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this show. So, I thought it would be good to get Juliette on with you, because you're being a paranormal investigator. You've already had one book out, which we were sort of talking about on the last time on the show. But now you've got a new book out.
I have. It's the follow-on. The first book was, an introduction to paranormal investigation. And I've followed that up now with experiences of a paranormal investigator, and there's kind of a plan to it really. So it's not necessarily a part 2, but it's a continuation in that the first book was aimed at people starting out in the field, and kind of teaching them that really that it's not all about Most Haunted, the Most Haunted effect.
Kieran, you have just made my evening with that. My God, you have.
I mean, we can get into this as the show goes on, but I was just kind of getting annoyed with people turning up expecting Most Haunted, and so I decided it started out as a presentation that I gave to some groups and then morphed into a book, and then I thought, wouldn't it be good, I've kind of shown these guys the introductory side and how to get into it, what it's all about, what to expect, and now wouldn't it be good if we started to talk about the experiences that they would have as they're going out investigating. So I kind of followed it on, and hopefully if they've read book 1, then book 2 will make a bit more sense to them. And if not, if you're a seasoned investigator, then there's some really good stories in there and experiences that to keep you entertained as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, even the first book, the Introduction to Paranormal Investigation, it's interesting to anybody who's, even if you've been doing investigations for a while, to see somebody else's comments and the sort of equipment that you use. That's what I found.
Yeah, the funny thing that I found actually with the paranormal world and the investigative field is actually it's the opposite. People don't care about other people's opinions because there are some very big egos within the paranormal world, and they kind of fuel the fire, and people look up to them and almost, hero worship these people. And what they say is taken as kind of scripture, and anyone else.
I was going to say gospel, but yeah.
Yeah. And anyone else, it's like, well, who are you, kind of thing. So I was actually quite surprised at how well received it was, and I'm grateful for that. And but yeah, I mean, anyone that is into the paranormal, there's some really good experiences in both books, and and even if you just want to kind of read it for a bit of, I don't really agree with that, and that's a good idea. then what you say is right, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get that with any book. I think you'll get someone who if someone's been doing like investigations for 20 years, they're going to find something to disagree with, in there somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, definitely. I'm nodding here, and I know you can't hear me. I'm sort of going, yes, yep. There's some.
Come on in, don't just nod. Say what you're thinking.
I'm saying what I'm thinking. I was just sort of phrasing it in the most polite and apt manner, because we all know liable. When you say MH, Kieran, I really need to have a conversation with you. And I nearly said off camera, but off recording, off air. You'll love me for it. Let's just leave it at that. But
okay.
It's lovely and refreshing to hear somebody like yourself just discuss and say it how it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it's that there are some egos there, and there are certain people. I remember watching something on Facebook, and it was a gentleman, shall we say, for obvious reasons I'm not going to name, drinking what looked like Ribena. It wasn't Ribena, and the person was 3 sheets to the wind and then some. Mysteriously, the video got taken down very quickly afterwards, and it was like, when you watch something, it was like watching Oliver Reed.
Yeah.
And I want you start to point out, it's not me she's talking about.
It's not David, it's not Kevin. There are some lovely people who have no egos. There are some people who, again, you're like, why are you doing it, sweetheart? Are you in it for the money, the notoriety, the women, the men?
Yeah.
Pass? Question mark. So, thank you. It's incredibly refreshing, so thank you for that.
Actually, it's fine. I mean, I've come into, shall we say, so many arguments. During my journey, I've got into a fair few rows with people about this. I was even refused an interview the interview would be ran by 2 radio hosts. One of them refused to interview me because he was part of a very, very famous TV show that I had previously digged into, and therefore he threw his dummy out of the pram and refused to participate in the interview.
But you stuck to your morals, so it's commendable.
And I went on, did the show, and said what I had to say, and that was that. I don't hold anyone any grudges. I mean, really, what I say, Juliette, is that there's 2 areas now, and we've had this split, and we have the entertainment industry and we have the research industry, and I'm fine with both. But you have to realise that the entertainment industry is just that. It's entertainment. Yeah. You can't watch things like Most Haunted for research purposes. You can watch them for a laugh or to be scared or for entertainment. But in my opinion, these people that do this, the second that they begin to rely on ratings or money or viewers, or even with the big franchise groups who aren't on TV that are beginning to dominate
YouTube,
people like Haunted Happenings and all these groups, that they're buying up, they're monopolising the market, and they're making it damn difficult for people like me to go out and investigate now. And when they do that, they begin to rely on customers and people paying. So they have to, in my opinion, begin to fake things in order to make sure they're entertained and they get their money's worth. And it's the same with the TV shows. If people get bored, then they don't get viewers and they don't get a second season. And the second that you begin to do that, and rely on that kind of thing, then you completely, your reputation as a researcher and an investigator is completely null and void, because you're relying solely on the money or the viewers, and then your reputation is just down the pan.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit there, because what it is, if you've got like a TV show like that, and you need to be bringing in money in order to be carrying on, aren't you? Yeah, I think that's the only problem with
I agree. And things like Most Haunted and Ghost Hunters and stuff like that, they've done good for the field because they've got people out there. I used to watch it when I was a child, and it got me interested, and it made me want to go out and investigate. So there are good sides to it, I agree. And if you watch the earlier seasons of things like Ghost Hunters, and particularly Ghost Hunters, the American version, they're very sceptical themselves, and they're very rigid in what they do. They make sure that they try to debunk everything, and it's refreshing to see. But then as the seasons go on, and they obviously build up this huge cult following, and they become more reliant on that, then it gets crazier and crazier, you know, some of the things that you see. And they begin to debunk less and less, and it becomes more sensationalized as each season goes on.
Yeah.
And less believable. But you're right, it's a catch-22 really, David, because you know, as you say, you need the money in order to continue making the shows. So it's kind of this catch-22.
And also, they're making a living out of it as well. We mustn't forget that, you know, because that becomes their living. So, you know, obviously, if you're going to do that for a living, you've got to have money coming in. So, I think you can see it from both sides. I mean, I'll tell you what, as far as shows like Most Haunted goes, like I said to Juliette before, what interested me most was actually the introduction bit, where they told you about the venues or the locations they were going to, and the history behind it and all that sort of stuff. And then the rest of it is kind of entertainment about what's going on, you know, what's going to happen. Like, are they going to get tapped on the shoulder or something, you know? But it was the initial introduction that I found most interesting.
I think, yeah, I mean, but what you've done there, what you've just said there, Dave, is absolutely right, because people forget this again. You know, you're watching a 1 hour TV show, which is actually 45 minutes if you take out the adverts. And they used to have like a 10-minute introduction, as you've just said. They'd have a 10-minute outro as well. So you're left with like 15 or 20 minutes of actual investigation going on in the program. So of course it's going to be rammed full of stuff, even if that stuff actually genuinely happened. Sometimes these guys are camped out for 10 plus hours trying to get footage. And they've condensed that down into 20 minutes. So people will watch that program thinking, wow, that's action-packed.
Within that 20 minutes, yeah.
Exactly. It's all go.
Which is especially with the American ones, isn't it? Because they're so like fast-moving and everything. You think, everything's happening here.
That's for the American audience. I mean, slightly off topic, but if you watch Gordon Ramsay's British TV shows against the American TV shows that he does, they're completely different productions, because one is appealing to the American audience.
Well, excuse any Americans listening out there. Kieran's not being insulting. He's just he's just pointing out some differences between us.
You know, when people used to come on our investigations, they would expect that 20 minute of action constantly. Yeah. So in 10 minutes, if someone hasn't been possessed, we've actually had people walk out after half hour because someone hasn't been possessed.
Kieran, I've just thought of something. Do you mind if I just ask you? I saw this fantastic meme. I'll send it you.
Okay.
And it says as following: Ghost Hunter, comma, are you trying to communicate with us? Door creaks. Ghost Hunter, so your name is William. To me, having been on investigations with, don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic mediums, be they famous or not famous, but there's an element that always, I think, which sort of harkens back to what you've just said. It's like, let's make it fit, let's do it action-packed. I remember having this discussion with somebody else, sort of saying, cold reading. What do you mean cold reading? I said, let me just cold read you. And I did with this young lady who oddly I'm friends with now, and it was like, oh my God. I said, yeah, but think about it. I've been sat with you all day. I've been listening to your conversation. Oh God, yeah. And I said, yeah. I said, it's easy when you know what you're doing. So I said, that's all that medium's just done. No, they're real. No, they're cold reading you. So I'd like to throw that one open to you both, to be honest.
It happens all the time. I mean, I discussed this in my podcasts and in the shows that I've done and the presentations I've given, because, you know, these big groups, these big franchise groups, as we've mentioned, some of these, they're charging like 4 times the price of what realistically they could get away with charging. And it's a lot of money when you think about it. And when people go, they feel like they something has to happen, because if it doesn't, it's a waste of money. Then they go and a bad review on TripAdvisor or whatever, and the custom slowly falls away. Yeah. So they always seem to have that resident medium on site to kind of guide you around and make you feel how you should be feeling or how you want to feel. So you always leave feeling impressed, you know, feeling that you've had your money's worth.
Yeah, I've got to say, some of the investigations I've been on, they're absolutely bored. You get bored stiff, don't you? Until by about 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning, and then something will happen that sort of grabs you, and you think, oh, it was worth it after all.
But that's ghost hunting, David. You know, ghost hunting is trying not to fall asleep at 1:30 and slapping your friend because he's snoring in your ear.
Yeah. And you're sitting there freezing cold.
Yeah, you know, you might get one piece of evidence, one in every 5 or 6 investigations, and even then it's not nailed on evidence that you've captured.
No.
But, you know, it for me, it's not about that. It's not all about that. It's about just being out with good friends and surrounding yourself with good energy and just having a really good time. And if you get anything, then fantastic. And if you don't, at least you've had a good night with friends.
That's a wonderful, positive outlook, and I wish an awful lot more of the groups and other people would actually take that on board. Bravo.
Yeah. And we've all missed our friends over the last year or so, haven't we? We've not been able to get together and mix ourselves together, but hopefully that will change this year.
I've been asked to join a local investigation group, and I'm a little bit hesitant because they've been going about 2-3 years, and I thought, okay, you know, let's do a bit of researching. And I was slightly perturbed, if that's the right word, and they were sharing videos from, guess which programme? Yeah, you know where I'm going. You know where I'm heading with this, don't you? And I thought, right, I'll play devil's advocate like David does. And I posted a video, and I think it's something Malcolm posted. He does. And it was about a chat going on about the Connect. You know, it's like the stick man. There's probably a proper. What do they use? It's like Xbox stick man.
It's the Connect. It's the Connect.
That.
Yeah.
What you said there. Yeah. And I said all I put thoughts. I didn't put a paragraph, and it was like, we use this, we've got some fantastic, and I thought, yeah, that's how I thought they were going to, good grief. I will be attending when they start, and I will let you know what happens, but there's part of me that's rather hesitant.
Yeah, do it as a paranormal investigator, you know, just keep yourself to yourself and, see if you can see anything untoward happening.
I'd use it as an excuse to get out there really and investigate. I mean, I did something similar. I went with a local group, because what I've done, because of everything we're talking about now, I've kind of distanced myself from these groups, and I really just operate on my own now, and I have a couple of close friends that we do it together, and we do private houses and, you know, private investigations.
Yeah, like
and stuff
people
like that.
you know you can trust.
I'm with a team that I know I can trust, and we're doing, you know, these smaller locations, and for 2 reasons. One, because these locations have never been done before, and there's something exciting about that. And secondly, because we are being just priced out of the bigger, well-known locations. You know, people just can't afford that anymore. So what we tend to do is just stick together as a small team. But I decided to just go off on my own and support a few local groups. So I went to one location in Wolverhampton, and it was exactly how I think you're expecting this one is going to be, Juliette. You know, I turned up, they had all this equipment. That they had Stickman. They had, the worst thing was, there were two things really stick out in my mind, and I ended up leaving early. One was they were using mobile phone apps, and I've done a whole 2-hour presentation on this and my thoughts on modern technology. And secondly, they were doing live on Facebook. So you let me just set the scene. You know, you're sat in this room, you're trying to soak up the atmosphere, the lights are off, it's dark, you're just zoning in, you're picking up on energy, and the door bursts open, a bloke walks in with his flash on his camera, talking to his free viewers on Facebook, and completely ruins the atmosphere. You know, completely ruins the atmosphere, while blinding everyone in the process. And I thought, why have I paid 40 quid to do this? I could have just stayed at home and watched it on Facebook.
Yeah.
There was no consideration for the people there. There was no consideration for what they were doing, what they were trying to get out of the evening. The people using the mobile phone apps and the tablet apps. The noise pollution was from every room around you. So you just couldn't focus. And like I say, I left about an hour before about an hour before it ended, they let you go off and do your own thing, and I picked that as an opportunity to just nip off, really.
Bye.
Yeah. You know, I said, look, I've got to go. I've got a young baby at home, and I said thank you and everything, but it made me realise how I'm so glad that I'm doing what I'm doing now. You know, my own little thing.
Do you know what? I think you and I are probably going to be chatting a little bit more in the future with me going, yeah, this has happened. You're going, yeah, yeah, nods. I tend to hang out with my history buddies and my heritage, so we're going to do YouTube Lancashire Footnotes, but it's a bit of like, they've written books, I've written books,
right?
And it's going to be a bit of a laugh. You know, we are going to do the paranormal side of it, but at the minute, we want to go further afield than where we're living. And to me, it's just, but it's the research that goes into it. It's so important. I love history. I've been invited to go and take pictures of a farmhouse before it gets knocked down and renovated. They're building new eco houses, and I'm like, thank you. Yeah, okay. And I'm like, no, but it's, you know, the original farm was 1625. So there's part of me that's going to like, will I get anything when I go down on Saturday? So I'm really looking for it. I like the excitement. If we get something brilliant, fun. If we don't, you're going with your friends. You're having a bit of a laugh. If you get something wonderful.
Exactly. And you get to see some fantastic places. You know, we did a place in Ludlow. I think it's called Castle Lodge in Ludlow. And it had the original fireplace that once belonged to Henry VIII.
Wow.
And, you know, and to be honest, it was a very uneventful night. But just to be surrounded by some of the architecture and some of the things that you get to see, and you feel really lucky. And, you know, even if you don't get any paranormal activity, as you say, with some close friends, you have, you know, good energy. And you're just in a really nice place, a location that you wouldn't normally get to see. And if you do see it, if it's somewhere that you visit regularly, like a museum or a castle, it always takes on a different energy on a night time. And it's nice to be able to experience that, whether you get anything paranormal or not.
I mean, that thing you said about paranormal activity, I mean, I think there's things paranormal going on around you all the time. It's just that you don't actually see what's happening. You know, it's only when you get obvious things, like you get someone touch your leg or you hear a noise or a stone hits the floor or something. But I believe it's around you all the time anyway. It's just that you can't always see it.
You're absolutely right. That is everything I've based my research off is just that. So before I got into the paranormal, I was really researching the nature of reality and how we perceive the world and why we see things how we do. And when you begin to go down that rabbit hole, one of the first things you learn is obviously the light spectrum and the radio waves and frequencies. And you realise that there's 99.95% of the light spectrum that we can't see or interact with. And the 0.05% that we do see is what we call visible light. So that means where we are now, whoever's listening to this and wherever we're sat, there's 99.95% of your surroundings that you cannot interact with.
You're like looking through a tube, aren't you, really? And
that's exactly right. And so what I've begun to understand and realise is that this is where these energies are living, and they're operating on frequencies that are outside of our perceptive range. And the reason we can't get into those frequencies is because of our biological body. You know, our body limits us and it restricts us to this 5 sense reality. And we have a consciousness inside us that is bursting to get out and to vibrate on these frequencies, but the body is restricting it from doing so. And I may have said this on the last interview that we had, David, where I use a radio to describe it. And you know, if you're tuned into Radio 1, it doesn't mean that Radio 2 doesn't exist. It's still there. You're just not tuning into that frequency.
And all the other hundreds of radio stations there.
Exactly right. And then as soon as you tune into the other one, that means the other one's still there. You're just not tuned into that one anymore. And I'm sure everyone's had it where your car radio station will play up and you'll have two songs playing at the same time, and then it fixes itself again. I think that's what's happening when we see anything paranormal. So people say, Bigfoot walked behind a tree, but he didn't come out the other side, or the UFO was there 1 minute and then it just disappeared before my eyes.
Exactly.
Well, I would argue that it didn't disappear, and I would argue that Bigfoot did come out the other side of the tree. But what's happened is your radio station has fixed itself, and you're back into only being able to tune into the frequencies that you should be tuning into. But for the briefest of moments, you lifted the veil and you tuned into another frequency. And we all live in the same world, essentially. And I would argue that aliens are interdimensional, they're not interplanetary.
Yeah, well, okay.
And we're all operating on different frequencies, and they can come in and out of our frequencies as they please, but we can't. Unless you're a medium or a psychic, but we can't. And it's led me on to some very interesting theories which I discuss in the new book, and one of those is that something that really, again, frustrates me on paranormal investigations is the assumption that we're always talking to a spirit that once belonged to a living person, a living body, a living being. And how do we know that? Because energy is energy. You know, when I die, my energy will just dispel and go somewhere else. You can't destroy energy. You can only change its form. And I think what we're dealing with is this collective consciousness that exists in the universe. So it might manifest itself as your mom stood at the end of the bed, because that is how you want to manifest your beliefs. And it might manifest itself as a Bigfoot, or it might manifest itself as a Victorian lady walking through your house. But ultimately it's the same collective consciousness. And the reason it can manifest itself as your mum and talk to you about memories that you would hold dear is because the collective consciousness was once your mum, and it was once everything. It is everything there ever was, and it is everything that there ever will be. It is me, it is you. And when the body dies, our consciousness goes and joins that collective consciousness. So it will always hold the memories of what it once was. And I'm beginning to see that that's what spirits actually are. And not just spirits, but anything paranormal. You know, religious people always see the Virgin Mary. She never appears to anyone that isn't religious. And I think what's happening is they're having a paranormal experience, but they're manifesting their own beliefs onto it, and therefore they're getting back what they want. You know, they're reaffirming their own beliefs. If you want to see a Bigfoot, you will. If you want to see a ghost, you will. Because you're just reaffirming your own beliefs. And people will say, well, it's just in your imagination. But what's the difference between imagination and reality, really? Because in my opinion, it's all in your head. Everything is in your head. Sorry, I went off on one a bit.
That's very interesting. I mean, I think the same thing happens with UFOs, doesn't it? Sometimes you can actually be thinking about wanting to see UFOs, and suddenly they'll appear.
That's CE5. The CE5 stuff kind of deals with that, where you talk like on a form of meditation where, I mean, I've been on those where the sky has just lit up like pure daylight, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you know, you ask for it and they appear. And I think it's because you're manifesting your own reality. And, that's what happens. And one thing I discuss a lot, particularly in the new book, is that paranormal experiences are personal. And we can use as many mobile applications as we want, and K2 meters and all these other expensive pieces of equipment. But ultimately,
you don't need them.
You don't need them, and they're faulty. They can be affected by outside sources, such as electrical equipment and stuff. The only thing you can trust is yourself. And if you go to bed knowing that you lied about an experience, well, you've got to live with that. But if you truly think that you experienced something, then you did. You know, no one can take that away from you. I've been stood next to someone who's sworn blind they can see a shadow, and I can't see it. But that doesn't mean that they're lying. In their reality, in their perception, within their frequency range, they are seeing it, and you have to respect that. And, you know, it's just like a cat. If you see a cat staring in the corner of the room, it's because they can see outside of our spectrum. So they can see things that you can't.
Indeed.
I just think that I love the radio analogy. That's just brilliant. When you said collective, I must apologise. I just thought the Borg. I must.
Oh, you can also think of it in digital TV. things
I
now.
love
You've got
Star
hundreds
Trek
of
and
digital
Star
TVs. You know, all these pictures are coming down, but you can only see one of them. Well, unless you've got a couple of
can only
TVs
see
going.
one, yeah.
Brilliant.
But all the other
When you
ones
say
will go to all these other channels.
I just love the colour. It's a fantastic word, but apologies for being a bit of a sci-fi geek and going. But I just thought that is a good terminology for it, because it's like it filters down, and it's like when Picard was Borg, and you
Yeah.
met the Great.
Yeah.
That's the best way I've heard it explained in a long.
Well, I must be
time.
honest. I'd never really watched Star Trek, so I'd say they're onto something good if that's what they're saying.
Watch an episode of the Borg.
Okay.
Just for Picard, and then you'll go, yeah, Juliette was onto something there, possibly, maybe. It just made me smile because there's so many people. Yeah, it's like all three of us could be stood watching the erection of Stonehenge, and all three of us will explain it differently.
Absolutely, because perception is everything, you know.
Yeah.
There's that famous picture, isn't it, where the two people are looking at blocks from either side, and one can see 3 and the other person can see 4 or something.
Yeah.
And everything is perception, and we see ourselves, and we challenge ourselves, and we manifest our daily lives. And it's interesting because it's slightly off topic, but I was having a discussion with someone before we started this interview, and you know, they were saying, look, you know, I was getting a bit stressed about something, and he said, yeah, but it's on a physical level it's really annoying, and I understand, but on a spiritual level it's just you testing you, because ultimately everyone is you, and so it's yourself just testing yourself, and you need to understand that. And you know, since you said that, the anxiety just lifted off my shoulders, because I thought, you know, you're right, you're absolutely right, and it's just a different outlook on life that you have then.
It's good. It's a good outlook. I like it.
I'll tell you what, you know, when you were talking earlier about locations, and some of them are getting too expensive now.
Yeah.
I wonder why it is they overprice these things to make them too expensive.
It's because they can. I mean, at one point, there's a particular prison that people like to go to, and I've been there for a day tour, and it was fascinating, and I remember thinking, you know, this would be great to do on a night time. And then when I found out the price, and it was over £1,000.
Wow.
What?
For an 8-hour investigation. And I thought,
and also they limit the amount of people you can have as well, don't they? So,
well, yes, they limit, and that's why the price goes up, you see. So when you go with like the Most Haunted Experience or one of these big franchises, they'll charge like £80-90, and they have to in order to secure the location. So again, it's this catch-22. We used to investigate. There's a really, I don't really want to name these locations, but there's a really good location around by us, and he used to charge about £300 for the night, and that was great, you know, because you could have like 15 people and charge them like £20 each or something like that, and it was cheap enough. And
well, I can understand why a place would charge a fee. Why shouldn't they? You know,
no,
I'm not sort of getting at that. I'm just wondering why some of them overcharge sometimes.
That's absolutely right. I agree. And this particular location, it was great, you know, because he would have Friday and Saturday investigations, and you know, so he was making money off it. And then Most Haunted decided to go down there and chucked a wedge at him, and overnight it more than doubled to over £700 for the same location. So that now meant we had to charge our guests, we either had to get more people, or we had to charge more than double the price, and we weren't prepared to do that. You know, that's not something we were about. And that's what I mean by being priced out of these places. And every time, you know, almost on a daily basis, particularly before lockdown, you were seeing places like Most Haunted Experience, and these big franchises who, again, I'm not going to name, but you'll know who they are. Every day you will see them say, you know, we've now got this location exclusive to this location. That means nobody else can have it. And so if you want to investigate that location, you have to go with them. Yeah. And I just think that's so unfair to the, shall we say, the little people like us. And I might be coming across as this kind of really envious, jealous kind of guy. I'm really not. I just don't agree with because I don't agree with how particularly most of these groups, how they operate and I don't agree with their investigative techniques. So I think by really buying up all of these locations, so to speak, they're really denying some really good investigators the chance to gather some really good research.
Yeah, and I guess as far as the location is concerned, if one group says, oh no, it's too much for us, there's always going to be another group that will say, yeah, okay, that's all right, we can do that.
Yeah, always. I mean, again, I'm sure I told this story on your last show, David, and I apologise if I did.
It was some time back, so...
It was, yeah. But we got married in a little Victorian house that's in the middle of a park, and it's a lovely place. And when we went to have a look around and make the booking, I said to it's really local to us, we've grown up, I grew up playing in the park. And I said to the lady in the house, do you do ghost hunts here? And she said, oh, no, that's something we would never dream of doing, never in a million years. And I said, okay, that's fine, just thought I'd ask. And we went on our honeymoon the day after our wedding. So we were away for a week, and it was the night after we'd got back. So really not that long after I'd asked this question. I turned on the telly, and just in time to hear Yvette Fielding screaming, and realised that it was Most Haunted. And I thought, okay, let's keep this on. I haven't watched it in a while. And lo and behold, they were at that very place.
Wow.
No.
A place that had told me that they never in a million years would they have a booking.
Yeah, so you might a little light bulb, you switch the switch there, and I thought, oh, we could make some money here.
Either way round, you're right. Either they thought we can make some money, let's contact Most Haunted, or Most Haunted contacted them, which I would probably say was what actually did.
Yeah.
They said no. Most Haunted wrote a figure on a piece of paper. Yeah. Most Haunted wrote a figure on the paper, and they couldn't put it down.
Forgive me if I interject, they don't pay the locations.
Do they not?
Nope.
Okay.
I can talk to you later about that.
Okay, great.
Wink. I'm actually winking. Oh my god. When you see me, you'd be like, she's bloody not to this one. But
sorry, can you explain any of that without sort of getting us into trouble, Juliette, or not?
No.
Right, okay.
I get done for libel. And I mean, I'm genuine.
No, I just kind of wondered how they can get away with not paying for the location, that's all.
Think about it. It's like, let's say I own Blackpool Tower.
So it's like an advertisement for the location, is that what you're saying? It's kind of...
Think about it. It's like, my Blackpool Tower isn't doing particularly well because of COVID, nothing. So,
I didn't know you owned...
I've never had, go with me with this one. So, Most Haunted or whoever approach me and go, right, can't pay you, however, we can give you exposure so you can make money back and do ghost tours. That's what they do.
Right.
Even if they don't do the ghost tours, they just get good exposure.
There you go. So that's how, in some cases, yes, you've got to pay for a location. It's like Winter Gardens, which is not as famous as the tower. They have done them at the tower, but they're very few and far between now because you're limited on the numbers. But they've been only like 40, 50 quid, which is not that expensive, but
not that bad,
like Kieran was saying, you've seen them, I've seen them for more than that, and it's like, hold on, that's not really that famous, or is it just steeped in the history? I'm waving a flag here for you, Kieran. I know you're thinking, gosh, she's off again, she's gone on a tangent, but you're saying so much that I'm nodding, and I'm thinking, why have I not heard of you before? And I mean that in a good way.
Well, you should have listened to a couple of my older shows then.
I know that. I think you know what I mean. Sometimes you come across people and then sometimes you don't. Because there's so many people doing it. But I want to find the genuine ones, and in my head I'm like, flag, Kieran, genuine one.
It's
cool.
It's really nice what you're saying. But I think it's because I really do keep myself to myself.
Yeah.
I don't have a Facebook page promoting what I do. It's really word of mouth. It's really, obviously I host the Paranormal Paradigm podcast, and I have the Paranormal Paradigm group, which I've kind of called myself and my close knit of friends that we go out and do it with. But I just don't, like I said earlier, there's so many egos and there's so many arguing and infighting and politics that I just can't be bothered with that, so I just keep my head down. I do these kind of interviews, and that's really how I get my exposure. I don't really push myself. Someone interviewed me the other day and said they added me on Facebook, I think, just to try and get a gist of what I was about. And he actually then messaged me later saying, "I'm really sorry, but what exactly do you do?" because he couldn't tell from my Facebook. It's just pictures of my son and stuff like that. So that it's because I don't really put myself out there in that sense, because it goes against everything I believe in. That I can't really have strong opinions on these groups and then do what they're doing. Yeah.
I mean, that's something I can't get my head around, why people develop egos because of what they're doing in the paranormal. Juliette, I mean, we know a few people, and I can safely say that I don't really think of anyone that's got really an ego, apart from one or two people that I could mention. But no, you know what I mean, Juliette, don't you? I mean, we know several people that they've got no egos at all.
They're lovely, they're genuine, they're beautiful souls, for want of a better expression. What I just said, Kieran, I wasn't trying to be funny or clever. I was just like, you've mentioned so much that I'm going, that's me, but it's not me. Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying, because I feel the same when I kind of come in contact with those kind of people, because as I say, people always say to me, "Oh, have you heard of this person? Do you know who that is?" And no, because I keep myself to myself, and I keep my head down, and I've written my books and I do my talks and stuff. But it's not. I argue this in the book. I don't have much faith in the future of the field. Mainly because of the way evidence is going, which we can talk about maybe in a minute, and how we can't rely on evidence because of Photoshop and CGI and stuff. But also just because, as I say, there's so many politics, there's so much infighting going on that it's not really something I want to be associated with.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah,
I do find that quite a bit, that some paranormal groups will set themselves up as enemies of the other paranormal, and I don't understand that. You think they'd all want to work together,
but it happens in ufology, as you well know, David. And it's something that it will always happen. And I've got someone that I used to investigate with, and he's got some fantastic evidence, and I mean really good pieces of evidence, and it sits on his phone and on his hard drive, and I've had to beg to see some of it. He's so unwilling to show it to anyone, and you just think, well, what's the point? Why are you even doing this if you're not willing to share it? Is it just so you can wake up at 3 o'clock every now and then in the morning and just stare at it and think how lucky you were to have experienced that? Well, put it out there and let someone else have a look at it, because that's why we're doing it. I've got some good evidence, and my latest presentation that I've done is probably some of the best evidence I've ever witnessed and captured, and I've emailed that out to anyone that will ask, because of course have it. And I've had people come back and say, I've watched this and I may have debunked it, and I think that's brilliant. Fantastic. But some people are scared of that. Some people are scared of having their evidence debunked or being mocked or being laughed at or whatever. And it's this one-upmanship that we see, not just in this, but just in everyday life. Next door gets a brand new car, so you've got to go and get a brand new car. And that's how it is. If someone else gets better evidence, you get jealous of them. So it's this tribal warfare that you see from group to group.
So
it's just not a nice thing.
As I say, speaking personally, you see, I mean, there's one or two people that I don't particularly like them as people. They probably don't like me for some one reason or another for things that.
Can't think why.
But I can still respect their work and read their books or whatever. There's a couple of people that I just don't like them as people, but I can read their books and.
I know exactly who you're talking
about. But I can read their books and I respect what the work they've put into them. So.
Yes, of course, Yes, well, moving on.
I mean, it's I just wanted to talk about that evidence thing I spoke of, because, can we ever rely on evidence ever again? Again, I don't have much faith. I sound like such a negative Nelly, but I just don't have much faith in it, because you're always going to have the naysayers and the skeptics. You know, you could be showing them the best piece of evidence, the most authentic piece of evidence, and someone will tell you, no, that's photoshopped, or no, that's been done on CGI or something.
Yeah.
And
well, there is so much of that going on, isn't there? That's the problem.
There is, and again, particularly in ufology, and the more advanced these kind of computer programming systems get and CGI gets and stuff, the more fakery we're going to see out there, and the more polluted the real evidence is going to become. And it's going to be more and more difficult to produce something that could change people's minds.
Yeah. See, that's something else I don't understand. If you're really interested in ufology, and you're a ufologist, you believe in UFOs, why go out and fake UFO photos or film? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Because you're two reasons.
You're just muddying your own waters, aren't you?
I would say the first reason would be for fame, to say that they're captured. And the second reason is because they're so desperate for everybody else to believe what they believe, that they will do anything to push their agenda or their belief. And we see that again in, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door trying to convert you or something like that, because people have this thing where they don't want differences. People hate differences, you know, they don't like if someone is different to them. So they want them to believe what they believe. So they will do anything they can in their power to try and convince them, because in doing so they will then have someone that is like them, and they will also then be reaffirming their own beliefs, which of course is just as important to some people.
I think we're not all like that, but
no, and as I say, this is where I'm going. My kit bag has got smaller and smaller and smaller and less expensive by way of doing so, and it's really just me. You know, it's me, a camera, an EVP recorder, occasionally a spirit board, because I do like a spirit board, and that's it. And it's all about the personal experiences, and it's no good trying to convince Joe Bloggs to believe your evidence, because some people will never believe your evidence, and you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy.
Yeah.
But if you can kind of, you know, live your life knowing the experiences that you've had on a personal level, and allowing that to change you and to push you and to guide you through life, then that's all that matters.
I mean, you spoke a bit about telephone apps a little while ago. Yeah, there's probably people going to be listening to this that will say, well, their telephone apps are great. So what can you say to them to maybe put them off of using their telephone apps?
I don't want to put people off, because, you know, it is what it is, and if that's what you do, then great. But there's so many things wrong with using mobile apps or tablet apps. I mean, firstly, they've been proven to be easy to falsify, so they can have preloaded words or preloaded.
Yeah, a couple of someone's selling ghost boxes like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention any names. Don't worry.
David, that was a sly one. And that person actually lives in Lancashire. Yeah, I think we're talking about...
Anyway, moving on.
No, but that's exactly what it is with mobile apps, you know, and also mobiles listen to what you say. That's a proven fact. So how easy would it be to code an application to listen to what you're saying and then throw out words that are similar to that kind of context? Quite easy, actually, to do so. So that's one thing that's wrong. The second thing that's wrong is you're in a dark room and you're staring at a bright white mobile phone screen or whatever, you know. And so, as I say, when I was on that investigation, that the room was just polluted with people's mobile phone lights, essentially, while they were on these apps. And of course you've got then the EMF side of things, which is being bombarded out of these mobile phones, the devices themselves. And as I've discussed on the last show, EMF is a known cause for mimicking paranormal activity, particularly in the body. So bombarding yourself with EMF when you don't need to isn't a good idea either. And lastly, these kind of mobile phone apps, what I've seen, it develops this psychology, and it's actually really fascinating to see. So that investigation I spoke about earlier, where I left early, the one thing I actually did enjoy on that evening was just watching and being amazed at the psychology of the people that were using these apps, because they were clearly preloaded with words, because we would go from room to room, the situation had changed, the scenario had changed, but there was always the same phrase. So there was this one phrase that kept saying, over there, over there, over there. And it doesn't matter what room we were in, that phrase would come out. And they would then go with that. So someone would go, over where? Over there? And then a bit later, it would say something like, yes. And they go, oh, he is over there. And before you know it, in 10 minutes of interacting with this app, they've developed a whole backstory where there was a girl who stood over there who...
William!
A bad uncle called William who abused her, and she couldn't leave, and she was trapped there. And they would genuinely go home believing that was what was going on. No other research was needed. No other investigation was used. It was just all taken from these random words that this mobile app had spewed out. And to sit there in the corner, occasionally being blinded by this guy filming his live show, watching this psychology unfold was more interesting than the ghost itself.
I'm sorry for laughing. Why do I get the feeling this is what's going to happen to me in the very near future?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think you're going to have a very similar experience to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to tell you what happens, because I will take the dictaphone. I will have a camera.
Oh yeah, you've got to do that.
I'll tell you what I do. You know the bird, the parabold. Me and words today, they're not gelling with my mouth and my brain. You know when you can listen to birds and it's like a big microphone. It's like a dish. I've got one of them.
Oh, okay.
I was listening to the next door neighbours, to be honest, but that's a different story for a different day.
Well, now they know. So this is this show.
No, they don't. I wish they'd move anyway. But it's really interesting because I thought, I wonder if I can use this with a dictaphone, and I can. So I was walking around one of our local cemeteries, and it was like just hearing the birds, and I thought, this is quite interesting. I must use this on something, but you can guarantee I'd pick up something incredibly random.
I've never heard of that being used.
I just thought it was something interesting, and I thought, why not? And I didn't want to get like a ghost box because I think no, and it's like all the other sort of pieces of equipment you've just described, and I thought, your head, your brain, a piece of paper, a pen, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, a camera that isn't digital.
I think you're right. I mean, again, I touch on this in the book that we've become very stale as an investigative field. You know, we use the same equipment, the same techniques, the same experiments, the same. We ask the same questions whenever we're interacting with these spirits. Again, coming back to what I said earlier, assuming that it's the spirit of a deceased body.
Could be a cat.
Exactly, it could be a cat. It could just be energy. It could be a form of energy that has never existed within a human body.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes you have the glass will move on a spirit board. It doesn't really smell anything. Doesn't go anywhere. It just moves. It's possible that you're just interacting with energy, that this collective consciousness that I spoke about. But what really frustrates me is, you know, I've been on investigations and I've asked on a spirit board, you know, have you met God? And I got scolded for that. I got scolded. I got told to leave the board.
Why?
You can't ask those type of questions.
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. I said, with all due respect, I don't care if he's a man, if it's a woman. I don't care if they mean us harm, because it always comes back to that. Do you mean us harm? I don't care about anything like that. That's completely irrelevant. What I want to know is, where are they existing, and what plane are they existing? How do they view us? How do they come in and out of our world? You know, is God real? You know, that's the biggest question on everyone's mind. And why can't we ask those kind of questions?
Well, I think you're right, Kieran, because I mean, the ones I've been on, all you get is basically, is there anybody there? And it's kind of two lots for one. Yeah, I mean, if we're already on a paranormal investigation, we already believe that there's going to be people there. And so you want to go a bit deeper, don't you? And find out whereabouts they are, and more about their environment. Yeah, I agree with you.
Oh, I've got a question you can do next time, Kieran. Just say, what speed is God's speed?
Okay.
I did that once with a lady who, obviously, she was a born-again Christian, and she used to wear the Jesus jumper. She's passed now.
I think it just means...
And I was like, I actually said, what speed is God's speed? You know, is it 40 miles an hour? Has he got a speedboat? I was kind of going the Eddie is not.
Yeah, I think it just means on your way. Good luck on your way. I think that's all that means. Not an old...
It does. And to me, and she actually gave a really concise reply. She actually thought about it, whereas I'll hold my hand up, I was taking the mic up, but she was like, that's where the phrase originates from. And it was like, but I've actually caught people out with it. It's like, what speed is God's speed? Huh? You're like, oh, good great. Look, think about the question, sweetheart. What?
It's, it gets frustrating because, like I say, it gets boring because you think, it's the same investigation, just in a different place.
And speak a foreign language next time, You
would again? No, you're absolutely right. We've done castles, and we've asked questions in, thanks to Google Translate, we've asked questions in French and received replies, because we realised that there were French soldiers once there, and it's all about interacting with the environment. We've been in locations and played like Vera Lynn music because that's what they would have listened to at the time.
Yeah.
And again, everybody always assumes that these entities can spell. They assume that they're going to have. Sometimes they spell really weird. You say, "What's your name?" and it spells something that to us doesn't make sense because it's not Luke or John or Dave. But to them, that could be their name. Just because it doesn't make sense to us in our language.
See, I've got another little question here then. Now, we're talking about spiritual beings. Now, they've gone over to the other side. So, they're not really in their human form now, are they? So, why would they not be spelling properly? That's kind of, they're going to be their more intelligent self in their spiritual world, aren't they?
It's a very, very good question. For me, again, I don't have a definitive answer. I don't have a definitive answer to anything. Anybody that says they have an answer to anything and they know exactly what is going on is lying because we don't. Yeah. It's all theorising. I mean, that's a really good question.
I mean, or is it because they're on a lower plane? Maybe it's just kind of just over the threshold of this life. And maybe, maybe that's what we're talking about here. That they're on a threshold of this life, but not actually reaching the next stage up. What's the matter? You're right, Juliette.
No. I was thinking, no, David.
I mean, go if you've got to. Go on.
I know. No. Great question, but Kieran theoretically, in one way, has actually already answered this with the radio analogy. They're on a different frequency, and that's why they're not coming through as strong as we would like them to.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, we give them tools and equipment in order to do so, such as REM pods and spirit boxes and infrared cameras, so we can see into the infrared spectrum and stuff like that. So we're doing our best. I think to go. To kind of flip that whole, the evidence is going to be rubbish in the future kind of argument I made, to put a positive spin on that, we will continue to develop better equipment that allows us to see outside of our spectrum. So, hopefully we can keep up and continue to develop equipment that allows us to see things that we can't see with the human perception. But to try and answer your question, David, it's energy. It's just energy. And if you're just interacting with energy, let's take cymatics, for example. If you tune cymatics into a particular frequency when they have the sand on the table, and then the sand makes the pretty little symmetrical pattern, well, there's going to be some frequencies where it doesn't quite make a symmetrical pattern and it just ends up jumbled up and doesn't look so pretty. That's what could be happening, but in the context of spelling, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you could just be talking to an energy form that has never existed in our world. So what is spelling to them?
Yeah. Also, if we're talking about other planets and as well, they could. If everything all comes together, they could actually come from another planet as well, couldn't they? in the spirit world.
People claim that they've seen UFOs with writing on the side, and it's like some kind of symbols, hieroglyphs. and that's their language. You know, it's not, you know, even in this world, you know, in our world, the Russian alphabet or the Greek alphabet is completely, you know, again, it's this kind of egotistical arrogance that we have as human beings, that why can't they talk like us? Why can't they spell like us? And it could be as simple as they're Russian and they don't use the same letters as us.
Yeah.
So. Well, it's like with the more successful people, shall we say, in the media world, it's always an assumption that everybody speaks the Queen's English.
Yeah.
Which goes back to what you were saying, you know, you speak French, you know, if they were French or German or whatever, or the programs. There was one where I think most of it did Germany, and it was like, you know, you're in Germany, speak German. No, you speak English, and they were answering English. Really? Oh, have you got a Babel fish in your ear sweater? Oh, apparently we have. Yes, it's hitchhikers all over again.
Sorry, Yvette, if you're listening.
Oh. What would she listen to us? Come on.
No, well, you never know, do you?
I'm just speaking. It's not libel. I'm just speaking my own thoughts, but it's true.
Yeah.
I'm not sort of saying, yes, they live at such and such a place and their address is which is easy enough to find anyway. But you could say the same about the late departed Derek Acorah. That would open a can of worms.
Yeah.
Because you've got 50% going, he's real, he was fantastic, and then you've got the other 50%, unfortunately, who, you know, have watched him get possessed with the Liverpudlian accent. Like the Mary Loves Richard, and you know where I'm going with that one.
I mean,
it's a fantastic.
That's what I've said before. I think Derek was a good medium, but he was actually trapped sometimes because he had to come up with results, like you know, to make the show interesting, sort of thing. And I think he just got caught up in that. You know, he was.
Some of the clips were fantastic though, because you were like, "What's going to happen?" And they were, oh. Interesting viewing.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I mean, I think he was actually trapped into a few of those things, but because I do understand from a few people that he was Richard Felix. He has said that he was actually a good medium, you know, like the historian. So
I think he was used as a bit of a scapegoat. Yeah. I think it was around when he departed the show. It was around that time that people began to realise there's a bit of trickery going on here, you know, and I think he was used as the scapegoat, you know, and then all of a sudden people forget about the times that Carl's been caught kicking a bucket over just slightly on to the side of the camera within view, and people forget about the times that I can't remember his name, was it Fred something, was caught throwing a rock from behind the camera, got caught. So people don't think about that because it's all about Derek Acorah. He was a con man, wasn't he? And it kind of took the limelight a little bit off what they were doing, and I think he was used as a bit of a scapegoat, and that's irrelevant of whether he was real or not, or authentic. I think he was used as a scapegoat.
Yeah, it didn't hurt his career though, because he still pulled in the crowds separately.
Yeah, he did, absolutely.
Yeah. After he left the show. So, I'll tell you, on your investigations, Kieran, have you ever been involved in any reincarnation cases or seen any evidence of it?
Funny you should say that, because I had a regression session myself. Last week. Yeah.
Now we haven't rehearsed this, everyone. No,
I'll try and answer your actual question in terms of investigations. So in the new book, what I've done is I've broken experiences down into categories. So I've broken them down into 6 categories, and one of those categories is an empathetic experience, and that's where you can pick up on the emotion or relive the history of what happened in a particular location. And I did have a really good experience with this at it was a castle, and we were in this room that is now being used as a wedding room, so people get married in there. So it's quite a long rectangular room, and at the time that we were in there, they had the chairs were all kind of lined around the outside of the room, and I was sat down on one of the chairs right at the back of the room, and I felt really nervous, and I felt really kind of on edge. I was rubbing my hands together, they were sweating, and I felt really anxious. And the person sat next to me said, "Why don't you just get up and walk it off?" And I said, "Yeah, but if I do, whatever I'm anxious about, I feel like it's going to happen if I get up, so I'd rather not." So after about 5 minutes or so of feeling like this, I eventually got up and decided to have a walk around, and eventually it stopped and I felt okay. So I wandered down to the bottom of the room, and there was it had the altar there where obviously they would use for the marriage, and in the corner of to the left of that was a chair, and I decided to just sit in that chair. And within about a minute or so of sitting there, I had the complete opposite feeling. I felt very powerful. I felt like a king, you know, like really like kind of disobey me. I had this really kind of surge of power within me. And I pointed this out to the lady who was sat near me, and she was our guide, so she was the person opening and locking the doors behind us and ensuring that we were, you know, kind of weren't trashing the place, so to speak. And she kind of, I pointed out how I felt, and she just nodded towards someone in front of me, and about 10 yards in front of me was one of the other members of the group kneeling down, facing me on one knee. And I called out and I said, why are you kneeling? And he replied, I just feel like I should be. I said, oh, that's interesting, you know, because I replied, well, I feel like you should be as well. And that was that. And we carried on with the investigation. And then at the end of the night, when we were packing everything up, this lady came over and she said, it's really interesting how you felt, because that room used to be used for the court, and the lord of the manor, so to speak, would hold his court in there. Oh. And where you were sat to start with is where the person would wait to be called in front of the Lord. So they would be feeling anxious, they would be feeling nervous. And where you were sat, where that person was kneeling in front of you, is the area of the room where the Lord would have sat and given his judgment. And it really tied in with everything that I was feeling. And that was the first time I ever had that kind of empathetic experience. And so it's not quite, I guess, regression or a past life, but I was experiencing those emotions that would have been felt in that room. And it blew my mind when she told me, because I never do prior research on a location, because I don't want to subconsciously plant in my head ideas or names or anything like that. So when she told me, and I obviously went and did a bit of research myself, I was blown away by it, and
wow. That's almost a mediumistic, if that's a word, is it? That's almost a mediumistic experience.
And since then I've had similar experiences. There was another one where we were in a room with 3 beds and single beds, and there was this guy was pacing the room, and so everyone was sat on the bed, but I was sat on this little stool that was part of a vanity table, and this one guy kept pacing the room. It was a really cramped room. And I asked him to just sit down and relax, and he said, I can't sit on the bed. I said, well, you sit on the stool then, and I'll take the bed. Within seconds of sitting on the bed, I was streaming with tears. I was the most depressed I've ever been. And I remember asking someone, you know, like, if you had a gun now, I would end it all, no questions. I feel that bad. And at the time, I remember another lady in the room. It was one of those old wooden doors with the latch. And you heard her just unlatch the door and open it, and someone asked her what she was doing, and she replied, well, I feel like the door should be open, it can't be closed. And we did our research and found that there were children sexually abused in that room. And so I feel like sitting on the bed where that would have happened, I was overcome with that emotion, and of course the lady opening the door was picking up on that as well, because of course the door being closed would have been a sign of what was going on. So she had to open the door. So it is very medium type experience. You're right, David. I'm not a medium in the slightest, but that's probably the closest I've ever been to experiencing what they claim like to experience. Yeah.
Ooh. Well, I don't know where to go there. No, it sort of took me back a bit, that story. What about,
it's not a nice story, you know, it's not the nicest stories.
No, it isn't. It certainly makes you think about things, doesn't it? I mean, what about...
It does, but it kind of, sorry, I'm just going to say, it plays into this kind of frequency thing, and tuning into that energy, and tuning into the... Because, you know, something that happens like that would have embedded itself on the energy of that place.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously how mediums work anyway, and you might have got a little insight into that.
Yeah, I think I did, if I'm honest, yeah.
So, I mean, what have you never thought about maybe trying to develop that? Because you may well have the ability, but you've not really developed it.
I think we all have the ability. I think we're born with it. You know, children that have imaginary friends. I think there's an argument to say that they're not imaginary. They're just seeing something that we can't. But what we do as a society is we tell them that they're being silly and stupid and immature and that imaginary friends don't exist. And what they then do is begin to tune that out until eventually, bit by bit, they no longer see it. And then we've kind of churned them through the sausage machine and made them into one of us. Yeah. And I also think there's the things such as being bombarded with EMF, you know, 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, all this stuff that's going around, which suppresses, you know, the pineal gland. It's all being switched off.
It's all the things you're being fed as well, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, the things that you eat, the things that you drink, all of that stuff plays a part, I think, on you spiritually. Whether it's being done on purpose or not is a different show altogether. Yeah. But it definitely kind of impacts you spiritually, and therefore I think we all have the ability, but we partly forget that we do, and we're partly told by a society that no, that's not normal. You know, you don't focus on that. You need to go out and get.
We are pre-programmed, aren't we? I mean, I've said it. Exactly. I've said it a few times on the show. I mean, I don't think there's any problem saying that. I think we are all actually controlled by sugary drinks and, you know, what we watch on the TV and everything else. We're basically brainwashed from childhood. You know.
Yeah, I would agree. Without getting kind of too conspiratorial, I would definitely agree, and I think we all have it, and I think every now and then we experience glimpses of what could be if we were to focus on it. So part of the regression session that I had last week was with this, and it ended with the lady saying, you know, you might begin to experience things that you haven't before because you've kind of opened yourself up a little bit. And she was right. You know, I began to see things and experience things and just see the world differently. It was a very, very strange experience. I'm booked in for a follow-up session, and I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, I remember opening my eyes and looking at my roof, thinking, "That's not real." You know, like just looking at the ceiling of my bedroom and thinking, "That's not real. That's just a prop." You know, I felt like I was on a stage. And of course, the theories that I put forward are about living in a holographic universe and our perception and stuff, and it really punched home that belief when I kind of came around.
The thing is, now, when David Icke was saying things like that, sort of like 20, 30 years ago, everyone was laughing at him. But I think a lot of us are going that way and seeing that there's a lot of what he said, or it's not only his theories anyway, is it? He's picked up on other people's theories as well. Is actually true, or coming true, and it seems to be true, you know.
It is, and it's being discussed now by mainstream scientists, you know, the quantum physics and all that stuff, and at least once a week now I see a new article from some kind of scientists arguing that we're living in a simulated reality or a holographic universe or a manifested universe, or are we being controlled by an extraterrestrial civilization as part of like a game? And these are theories that are actually being discussed in mainstream, you know, science now. And as you say, people like David Icke would have been burnt at the stake if they were.
Well, to me, no wonder they're trying to keep him quiet and keep him away from everything, because they don't want what he's been saying for the last 30 years being made mainstream, do they? Apart from them saying it.
No, it has to come from them, doesn't it? Because that's the way, you know, it's controlled. But it was really that research, looking at the nature of reality, that I took that into the paranormal world, because I thought no one else is really doing this. No one's looking at it from this angle. And when you do begin to look at it from that angle, and as I've said earlier, you know, instead of asking the same questions and using the same equipment and doing the same experiments over and over again, let's look at it from a different angle. Let's try and revitalise the field. Let's try and, you know, rejuvenate it and actually take it to the next level. And you're only going to do that by theorising and putting theories out there. And you might make yourself look stupid and you might be proven wrong, but that's how things develop. You know, everything starts off as a theory before it's proven as fact.
Yeah.
And people are afraid to do that now, I think, because of what we've spoken about before with the politics and the infighting and the groups arguing with each other. People are afraid to, you know, put their head above the parapet and say, actually, I think this is what a spirit is. They're happy to just echo what everybody's saying and parrot the general consensus and have a quiet life, shall we say.
Yeah. Well, as far as your regression goes, Kieran, did you? I mean, how was it done? Is it just like a normal hypnotism?
Yeah, I mean, I was really. It was a very close friend of mine that did it, and she. I expressed my concerns that the reason I hadn't had it done before was because I was convinced I couldn't be hypnotised.
Yeah. I was going to come to that. But
yeah, and
everybody can be hypnotised.
Yeah, and that's how I felt. I felt, no one can hypnotise me. I'll either fall asleep or it'll just be nothing. And it's, they're not cheap either. So I thought I don't want to kind of spend a lot of money to have no results. So so what she agreed to do, which was really nice of her, was to have a little tester. So on the night before, we had a little test, and she just relaxed me, and really, it was all done over the internet via like Skype, and which again kind of put doubt in my mind. I was like, surely the person has to be in the room with you.
Well, that's scary actually when you think about it.
It is. Sorry,
absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, I relaxed. She said, have a blanket with you. So I had a blanket with me, and I was nice and relaxed. And she guided me through, she set the scene. So I was in a forest, and she was telling me she said, right, you're coming across a big house. What does the house look like? Do you want to go in? And she was kind of prompting me, and then I would carry on walking down the road, and I'd come across some trees. What were the trees like? And each scenario that she put me in represented a part of my life. And she used that to explain. So that house was my mum, for example, and it was beautiful on the outside. It was a really big traditional house. But when I went inside, it was quite empty, and there wasn't really a lot going on. And it speaks true to my relationship with my mum, where we're not very emotional with each other at all. We love each other to bits, but we don't really go deep in terms of emotional. So there's not really much inside. And each scenario that she explained was absolutely bang on. And when I said, you're really good at that, she said, well, it's not me, it's you. You've done it from your subconscious. I'm just kind of translating it into what it means. And we ended that short session with, telling me, there's someone with you, turn around, who do you see? And I saw my granddad, as plain as day, as real as I'm sat here talking to you now. My granddad was there, and she actually said, well, what's he doing? And I said, he's cupping my face, and he's telling me he's proud. And at this point, I was bawling like a baby, and we ended it, and I could not believe how real that felt. And I was there. I was in that forest looking at my granddad. So the next day we did it for real, and we went deeper, and the same, but instead of being in a forest, I was in a corridor with loads of doors, and she just asked me to pick a door at random and step through and explain your surroundings, and each one was essentially a past life. And one of my lives was 2,000 something years in the future. I was on a ship. Very, very strange. Very strange. And the furthest back I went was about 1100. I was a knight and got killed in battle. And again, I was bawling like a baby because I'd had to leave my daughter behind. Very, very emotional stuff, actually. But what was interesting was in each life, my brother was there. My actual brother now was in each life, because she would say, is there anyone around you that you want to approach or that you recognise? And so I did, and she said, just look them in the eyes, because they didn't look like my brother. But when I got close and looked them in the eye, it was my brother. My dad was in one past life. So yeah, it was fascinating, and she spoke about how you're linked. You will be linked through different lives as you are now.
I mean, one of the questions I was going to say was, do you remember? I kind of thought when you get hypnotised like that, you don't really know what's going on until you sort of wake up and you're told about it. But obviously you're living it as you go.
No. I'm going to jump in there because. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt yourself or Kieran there. But, you know, I was trained by somebody who was fantastic, Richard Payne. Google him, Pathé Newsreel. He walked like a hypnotist, but it's, people just think, oh, it's for show, it's for entertainment. There's so many things you can do with it, as you now know, but you are conscious of what's being said. You are conscious. It's a bit of it goes back to what you're saying, Kieran. Frequency.
Yeah.
You know, everybody can be hypnotised. It might take a few attempts. Some people are more susceptible than others. You can say some people get drunk quicker than others. It's all a matter of perception, but it's such a useful tool if used properly in the tool bag.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, to try and explain it for you, David, I was there and I was fully, and at any moment I could have just opened my eyes and sat up. You know, yeah. I'm not like kind of glued down and being held down, but what was weird was it's like you couldn't, you know when you talk now, you think about what you're going to say and then you compose it in your head and you say it. Whereas in that situation, it wasn't. It was just in the head, straight out the mouth, and I couldn't stop what I was saying.
Well, I'm like that most of the time.
So the thought was in my head, and yeah, I know people that don't have a filter, basically, yeah. But that's kind of what it was like, you know. And as I say, when I saw my granddad, and when I had to leave my daughter to go to battle, were two experiences that were just as real as any experience I've ever had in this.
It reminds, the way you're describing it, it's like Alan, oh good grief, Todd Muddin, Alan Godfrey, you know, when he was hypnotically regressed.
Oh no, right, yeah.
Godfrey Allen. Yeah.
Well, something like that, anyway, yeah.
Juliette and I'm not linking the words properly, so you know what I mean, though, if you've ever seen him
Godfrey,
speak.
yeah.
Absolutely fantastic, but he was very reticent in the first place to be put under.
Yeah.
But the results were absolutely fun. But again, got to be done properly. Otherwise, you know, you can suggest things that it's auto-suggestion.
It is, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
And I was going to say, David, that you are conscious enough to know if you are being led up the garden path.
Well, I will say that I did actually try this regression once. I paid, I don't know, I think it was £60 near where I lived. Went to somebody's house.
Yeah.
I wasn't convinced I could be put under, and I don't think I was put under. But I was being led along, you know, like you're opening doors and things like that, and going down steps and things like that. Now, I don't know if I got to a point where I was making something up, or if something was actually happening, you know, because I can actually remember something, but I don't know if it was me actually conjuring it up in my own mind.
Yeah, but again, come back to this kind of we manifest our own reality. What's the difference there, really? I would argue that there is no difference, you know, because because I felt the same, David, you know, I felt that there were times I was like, am I just saying this because I'm expected to say something?
Yeah, well, that's how I felt. I felt that I had to, because I'd sort of gone there and I'm sort of supposedly being hypnotised and going normally I just go to sleep quite easily. Yeah. But I'm sort of standing there and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going under, but what's going on here? And I was sort of being led through these different doors and downstairs and everything, and into a garden and everything like that. By this person that was doing it. But then I got to a point where I'm seeing something, but am I actually doing it myself, or is this something actually happening here? But I really think I was actually imagining it myself, to be honest.
It's the thing is, what I found was I'm like you, if I'm awful at meditating, because within 20 seconds of meditation I'm waking myself up snoring, and that's what I thought would happen. But weirdly, I didn't. I was kind of held in this state of, you know, half consciousness, as I say, enough that you know what's going on, but also not enough that you don't feel relaxed and happy in the position that you're in. And I tell you, we did it for 2 hours. We went for in the end the actual session. She said we'll go as long as we can, and she ended it when I was on this spaceship, and I was getting quite desperate because the situation was I had to get out, I had to leave, and I couldn't, and I was getting quite. She said, I don't remember this, but she said you were fidgeting, you were moving a lot, and I thought we'd just end it there. And with 2 hours, and it felt like 10 minutes. And I am a fidgeter, you know, I toss and turn all night in my sleep. I'm awful, but I lay there in the same position for 2 hours, did not move a muscle. Yeah. And I felt so relaxed. Normally if I lie on my back for so long, my back starts to hurt. And nothing like that. It was a really bizarre scenario. But I do understand what you're saying. Am I saying this because I'm expected to say something? Or am I saying this because it's what's wrong?
Really, I'd love to be able to say that I've been hypnotised and I know I was definitely under and everything like that, but I couldn't swear to it, you know. It's just one of those things that, did it happen or did I don't see in my mind. I don't think I was hypnotised. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I don't believe you or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. Because I do think it's that. I think it's just me. I don't think I could be hypnotised. But as Juliette says, I probably can. Maybe under the right circumstances.
It depends. It depends who's doing it. It depends how confident they are. It depends, do you trust them? It depends if they're in it for the money. It depends if they're in it for their development or your development. It's a subject matter that I could bend your ears for many, many hours because I can do it.
I think is turning your mind off. I mean, I found my mind was racing, thinking, I'm not going to go under, I'm not going to, and that's what I'm thinking all the time, you know.
Barrier. You put in a
that's the barrier that you.
So, yeah. Everybody is. There was a lady who helped run Probe who was like, yes, I can do this, and I'm a medium, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm just like, all these hats. Yes. You know, and it was like, oh, yes, I'm going to take you in a room and give you spiritual healing, and yada, 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 yada. And this is when I did the cold reading with my friend, because I was being slightly mischievous and naughty, because that's me. And then when she came back out of the room later on that evening, and it was like, I sort of looked at her and I went, did this happen and this happen? And she just went, shut up, Juliette. That's all she said. And I thought, okay, you know, and I said, I hope you didn't give her any money. And she went, no. And I went, good. Were you cold red? And she went, yes and no. So there was an element of cold reading. There was an element of, you will be hypnotised, you know. It'd be fantastic if I had a goatee beard, and I've got the starry eyes, just not the goatee beard unless I buy one. So, because you've got this preconception, haven't you? You know, you've got like Paul McKenna, you've got Darren Brown, see, my hypnotist looked like one. It was like he was like 6'6". He had the goatee beard.
Did he have a little watch in his top pocket?
He did. He used to do, joking aside, he used to do a show for years, which my dad worked at, I worked at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and I remember, Dad, where'd you go? So he took me.
Right.
Unbeknownst to me, you're supposed to be 18.
Yeah.
So you could be hypnotised, so I'd sit upstairs, and it was just, I was fascinated. It's, you know, a child in the sort of early 80s, it's like, A, I shouldn't be there, I'm underage, B, this is brilliant. None of my friends are going to things like this, but my parents were rather fantastic and open-minded in respect of.
See, I find that amazing when you see these people on the stage being hypnotised by these, you know, all the crazy things they get them to do. And I think, well, really? I mean, all these people acting.
Yeah. No. First time, you know, for the first, I ended up working for him, because my dad had a episode, I'm not going to. Anyway, I ended up working for him, doing the lighting and the sound, and it was like, and people would go, oh, it's not real, and it was like, trust me, it's real. And it's a weird thing to watch. It just is.
I think
weird.
When you try and explain what hypnotism is, it's when you think about, again, the frequencies, all they're doing is they're just rewiring your brain. Yeah. You know, there's been instances in hypnotism where, that they've, who've you come with? I've come with my husband. And then they hypnotise them and tell them, well, your husband's not there anymore. And then when they wake up, they can't see him. He's sat right in front of them, but they cannot see him. And all they've done is kind of removed that point of attention from their perception. And, again, without getting too conspiratorial, can you imagine what if as a power in the world, if you understood how that worked en masse, how easy that would be to have to change people's perception on a wider scale.
You've hit the nail on the head there, because a lot of people have used it for entertainment purposes. Yep. I think there's a really good, not piece of evidence, that's the wrong phrase. There's a need for that, I think. I think that's maybe another step forward for the likes of somebody like me and you. It's just interest, but it's not it loses its knack if you televise it. But the thing, if you notice that, they never actually show somebody being put under on telly. And I remember sort of saying to Rich, I said, why? And he says, think about it, if that person is susceptible and you're not there, you can't bring them back out. I was I don't think of that. Yeah. That's why you will never see it on television.
Yeah, I can see that.
But that goes back to your theory of like the frequencies and the sound waves. To see it on the stage. If you ever get the chance to go and see somebody, however, go and see them, because it is, you could have a room
I'd be frightened of being dragged out there.
You might only get 6. Yeah. It's just, it's a fascinating
no more luck, I'll be one of the ones they drag out.
You do it. Oh god, yeah. I mean, some people volunteer and they go, yeah. But there's people like yourself, David, that I can't be hypnotised, and then they're usually the quickest to go under. Put your hands together and you're like, yeah. Your hands are like glue, and you watch him and the hands get stuck. I keep saying to my dad, you need to sort of get the shows we recorded on camcorder or video and digitise them, because they are brilliant. And you watch and you think, I forgot.
You stick them all up on YouTube.
They used to do a sketch. But I remember asking Darren Brown on a forum years ago, and I said, have you heard of Richard, Lord Richard Payne? And he went, yes, I have heard of him. And it was like, I didn't expect a yes or a no. And that surprised me. But it's like when you look up who inspired you, who made you get into ufology or the paranormal or investigating, there's always somebody you can cite and go, it's this person.
Yeah.
Indeed. Oh, anyway, Kieran, I'll talk a little bit more about your new book. Is there any stories and things you can tell us out of it, or is it something you'd rather just let people buy it and learn that way?
I could
buy the book.
I could take the capitalist answer there and say just buy the book. I think the experiences I've spoken of, the empathetic experiences I spoke of there, with the sexual abuse one and the awful. Feeling like a lord, they're in there. There's a common theme throughout the book. Just before we went into the first lockdown, I was lucky enough to be asked to go and investigate a house in Essex, and me and my team went down. Lovely family, and it was an absolutely horrible situation that they were in, and still are to a certain degree. Some of the experiences that they were having, constantly having pennies thrown, constantly. I detail in the book how the man of the house, Lee, was punched by an invisible force, and that was captured on camera, and I have that footage. I have footage of clothes manifesting out of thin air. Clothes that were downstairs at the time of manifesting at 2:00 in the morning, and just manifesting out of thin air and being thrown onto the landing floor upstairs. I detail that in the book. A lot of what they've experienced I discuss in the book, but some of it, scratches. They've got, at the time, there were 2 8-year-old, I think they were 7 or 8-year-old twins, autistic children. And for 3 or 4 months, they were sleeping, the whole family was sleeping downstairs in the living room because they were too scared to be upstairs. There's a picture of one of the children's back, which is scratched to pieces. It was horrible, and they had the usual. Someone went round waving sage in their face, telling them they were going to get rid of it, and nothing happened. They had a rather, I'm not going to say very well known, but a rather well known TV person go down and do his best, and it did nothing. And the one thing I said to them was, look, I'm not going to get rid of this thing. But what I can help you do is to understand what it is, and I can help you understand how to deal with it. But I'm not going to tell you I'm going to get rid of it, because I can't. And they loved that. They loved, the openness and the honesty and the integrity that we went down there with. I mean, one of the best things we had there was we were all, and again, I speak about this in the book, we were all downstairs in the living room doing a spirit board, and no one else was in the house. Everyone that was in the house was in that room, and we heard 3 footsteps upstairs on the landing, and then the door opened. The bedroom, one of the bedroom doors opened, creaked open. I'm a big lad, I'm like 19 stone, but I shot up those stairs as fast as I could. And no one was there, and we had a camera set up at the top of the stairs, and we caught the door opening. We didn't catch the footsteps, but we caught the door opening, and it was amazing, because they were clear as day, 3 squeaky, the floorboards, squeaky floorboard footsteps, the door creaking open. On 2 separate instances throughout the night, I had a shoe thrown off my back, and another team member had a shoe thrown at them. The second we were in the house less than 2 minutes, and a penny was thrown at us, which we managed to capture on camera.
Now, is that an old type penny or new?
No, well, what's interesting is it's an interesting story behind the pennies, because they've had New Zealand coins thrown at them, and no one in the family has ever been to New Zealand. But what they decided to do, I thought it was quite clever of them, was they basically started to put the pennies in a jar. Firstly, they saw it they took a positive and saw it as a way of saving money, basically. And I said, why don't you just
pennies
ask him
from
to throw
heaven,
fivers or something? Yeah. Ask him to start throwing fivers, and we'll all be somewhere a bit quicker. And but what they were doing, they completely ransacked their house for any pennies they could find, and it was never more than a penny. You weren't getting like 5 or 10p's. So they put all the pennies they could find in this jar. They counted what was in there, and then they were still getting pennies thrown at them. So when they had the first penny thrown, they counted in the jar, and it was the same amount that was in there before. So where had this penny come from? And it's like they were basically being manifested. And I've got photos of the wall where the pennies have hit the wall so hard that they've cracked the plaster on the wall. But what's interesting is, if you were to throw a penny at a wall, you'd expect the edge to catch the wall, so there'd just be like a line. But it's the whole face of the coin has dented the wall, almost as if someone has like pushed it into the plaster.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen like that. You'd get the edge, wouldn't you? You're right.
Yeah, you get the edge. But what's interesting is you get the full face of the coin in the wall. And like I say, it horrible for the children, horrible just for the family. This thing was mimicking voices. It would mimic the dad, even though he was at work. One of the things that it said was, Kelly, come upstairs, lol. And he would never use that terminology. He would never say lol. But the kids would, and it's almost like this thing was trying too hard to mimic. And they would hear their dog barking, even if the dog was out on a walk. I've got a video of one of a family friend walking through the door, and a penny being lobbed off his head. As soon as he's walked in. It's phenomenal. Some of the footage I've got from that house, and I'm so thankful to them for allowing me to use it in my presentations and to write about it, and to go there, and I'm booked in as soon as I can after lockdown to go back. A fascinating house, and there's a lot of that in the book.
That's fascinating. Can I ask whereabouts in Essex it is? Or was that something?
It was.
Well, you don't have to give it all away, but
it was. I remember thinking it's about 7 miles from Enfield, and thinking how interesting.
Oh, so it's kind of just outside of London,
so close
really. Right, okay. I was just wondering if it was anywhere near me, that's all, because I live in Essex now.
No, yeah, I know where you live. No,
I know where you live.
No,
That sounded so bad.
I've got very close friends that we visit regularly.
Oh, have you? We'll drop in for a coffee sometime.
Yeah, okay, fine. I'll let you know.
Yeah, you do that. You're always welcome. No. No, you know where I am, so... no, it's very interesting, I must say. I've got to say, your covers on your books, how did you come up with the ideas of those? Or was that... Because they're both really good.
I don't know if I want to give this away, because I'm quite proud of it. So basically there's this website called Fiverr.
Right.
FIVERR, and you can go on there and basically someone you put out there what you want, and people will come to you saying I can do that or I can do this.
That's interesting.
And it's how I had my you can probably see it now on Skype, the Paranormal Paradigm podcast logo. So I had that designed as well. So you pay X amount, you commission them basically to do your work, and you tell them what you want and how you want it to look.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's fair enough, isn't it? I mean,
and she did it. So she did my first cover, and I was so happy with it that I went back to this lady and said, look, I want the same font, the same style, because I want it to kind of look like a series. And the first draft she came back was quite dark. I thought, no, I want it to be a bit lighter. And she, with the second draft that she sent me was absolutely perfect, and that's what I'm using now.
It's a very catchy cover.
I'm so happy. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, but I can't take any credit really.
Well, you can, because you chose it, so...
Yeah.
It goes a long way. I mean, you do see some books, you think, oh, you could have done better than that, surely. If it's...
Well, the problem is that if they publish through Amazon, it's normally they give you an option to have their own version. So that they what they do, I think, is an algorithm reads your book or looks at your title and gives suggested ideas, like stock images, almost like a stock image, and you can choose which one you want, and that's what I think a lot of people tend to do to keep costs down.
Yeah.
But I think, look, I mean, I've been in bands all of my life, and I've released albums and EPs and stuff like that, and I've always had the same kind of motto. Even if I don't sell it, at least it'll look really nice on my shelf.
I've seen a few of your photos. Now, you were a drummer in a band, weren't you?
I was a drummer, yeah. So I misused the word musician.
No, I was actually going to ask you, do you still do it, or do you...
We are actually. So I was in a really, well, not really, but a rather semi-successful band. And then the singer and the bassist were married, and she was American, so they moved to America for a bit and had a baby. Now he lives in Amsterdam, and so it kind of split us up really. But at that point we were all having kids, and we were all, kind of getting on with our lives, and we thought, look, if we're not going to make it now, the dream's over, so let's just call it a day. But but now it's the 20th anniversary of an EP, so we're re-recording some of the songs and putting a few bonus songs out. So keep your ear to the ground.
Come on, tell us what's the name of the band. Come on, tell us.
Yeah.
The band is called Rhesus, as in the blood type, so RHESUS.
I already knew that, but I wanted you to tell us.
Yeah, okay. Not to be confused with the French band, because there was a French band called Rhesus. But if you go onto like Spotify or whatever, we had an album called Murdoch Drive. So if you to search for that on Spotify, you'll get
interesting. Yeah, see, I thought there's nothing wrong with mentioning your past experiences in that, is there?
No, it's to be honest, it's I'm kind of, you look back and it's sad that I don't do it anymore, and I've actually just listed my drum kit to be sold. Because when we record now, it's all I've got my friend's a producer, and he's got like a £4,000 Roland electronic drum kit, which is better than any acoustic I've ever played. So it's just all done on that now, and you got to keep up with the times, I suppose. And it's just sitting in my garage collecting dust. So I thought I'd rather give it to some up and coming person who's just learning.
Shame. Well, I always wanted to be a good drummer. Mind you, I always wanted to be a good guitarist. I thought I didn't succeed at either, but I know it's the sort of thing I couldn't put my mind to. But I bought I'll tell you a couple of when I lived in Suffolk. I actually bought a drum kit off of a boot sale, and it was sitting in our summer house for a couple of years. And just for a little, I don't know why I bought it, to be honest. I just had these dreams that I was going to be sitting there drumming, but I think the bloke was selling it for 50 quid, and I looked at it for the first week, and I thought, I don't know. And I went back the next week. I thought, I'm going to go for this. So I'll have it. And he said, you can have it for 40 quid. And I said, all right then. And he said, no, go on, give us 30. I think it was something like that, you know. But no, it was sitting in my summer house for a couple of years, and I ended up taking it out the tip and dumped it.
That's a shame. It's just practice. I mean, I've never had a lesson in my life. Completely self-taught.
Well, I could do it when I was, in my younger years. I don't know if you remember that record. You probably don't. You're probably too young. But it was a record called Wipeout by the Safaris. Yeah. You could better play that, believe it or not.
Well, that's
probably about the only one I could play.
It's the problem with drums is that it's if you play guitar you can play it acoustically and it sounds quite melodic and you don't have to wake up your neighbours. But with an acoustic drum kit, firstly you wake up your whole neighbourhood, and secondly, if you're not a musician, it just sounds like noise. It just sounds like banging. Unless you're rhythmically minded.
Of course, because there's nothing going with it, is there? It's just on its own. Yeah.
No, exactly. It's just, I'll sit here just tapping on my legs and my wife will go mad. What are you tapping at? And I'm like, it's in my head, the song's in my head, I know what I'm tapping at. But it does have a tendency to drive her mad.
I mean, luckily I was living out in the middle of nowhere, so I could actually go out there and just sort of bang about on it, and it didn't really disturb anybody.
Yeah, that would have been
but when Jill, my wife, a young grandson came over, he was only like a year old, and he was sitting there bashing and crashing on it, and I think it's about the best use it had. But anyway, no, I think it's good to mention your band and everything. I mean, good luck with your is it an EP, is it, not a single?
Well, we don't know. It's a 5-track EP originally, so we were just going to re-record those, but then, anyone listening to this that kind of will appreciate that you get bitten by the bug again, and you think, should we make it 6 tracks? Should we make it 7 tracks? And then, before you know it,
I should have to have a look on YouTube and see what I can find now with Rhesus.
Well, actually, there's if you go on YouTube and search for Rhesus the Chase, there's a very good music video that we won through a Pepsi Max competition, where I'm running around London dressed as a cardboard.
There you go, everyone. If you like a bit of rock music, have a little look and see if you can find it.
It's interestingly as well. Me and a friend just did a bit of fun. We called ourselves the COVIDiots, and we've recorded a few songs about the current situation as well. But I was singing in that one. No,
otherwise we'll be here for another 3 hours.
No, it's just I just like to keep my hand in every now and then, and although I don't really set up my drum kit anymore, I do play here and there.
There's no reason why you shouldn't. But anyway, I think your book is called Experiences of a Paranormal Investigator, Kieran Woodhouse, and it's available on Amazon.
Yep. It's Amazon. You can get it on paperback currently on Amazon. The ebook comes out at the end of April, the 30th of April. Or, I know a lot of people would either like a signed copy or they don't want to buy off Amazon, which is fine. They can just ask, they can come to me directly, and I'm happy to post.
So they can contact you obviously through Facebook or whatever, or if they don't know how to get hold of you, they can get hold of me and I'll put them on to you, something like that. So
my email address is kieran.woodhouse@gmail.com. You can find me there, or on Facebook, as you say, or the Paranormal Paradigm podcast, which is the show that I host. You can find me
Well, I
on
shall
there
put
as well.
some links on the Paranormal Dimensions page, as I usually do. So anyone listening to this and hasn't visited the Paranormal Dimensions page, come and have a look. Always trying to get punters.
Yep.
You got anything else you'd like to say, Juliette? Or you've got to sleep? Oh.
No, it was just interesting listening, because sometimes it's just interesting to learn. So it's been brilliant for me tonight. So David, thank you.
Right.
Kieran,
No,
thank you. It's just been been
you've been talking
fantastic.
to a rock star as well for a little while.
I know.
Well, I mean, you did make it. You were in a band and you were quite reasonably successful, so I think you can say you were a rock star, don't you?
Yeah, for the hour or so I was on stage, and then I was stacking shelves again the next day.
I think we've all been there.
Living the dream.
That's it. The dream is there. But anyway, it's been fantastic to have you on, Kieran, and thank you so much for coming on at short notice.
That's okay.
No, it's been a great pleasure. I mean, we'll tell everyone out there that Kieran was going to come on in a few weeks' time, but because we had this mess up with the Malcolm Robinson show, unfortunately, Kieran stepped forward quickly and took the place. And we were going to do the show in a few weeks anyway, so it's good timing anyway, because your book's only just come out. So
yeah, it's worked well.
Yeah, maybe things were working behind the scenes to make that happen like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I'll take credit for that one.
Oh, you'll take credit for anything, you will.
Yeah, at least I'm upfront about it.
Right, I think we'd better leave it there then, and say thank you, Kieran, and thank you, Juliette.
Thank you, David.
And
Thank you,
don't forget, Kieran,
Thank
I
you
mean
both.
that if you're coming down my way anytime, give us a bell or give us a message.
Absolutely,
and,
yeah. I'll hold you to
always
that.
welcome. All right.
Great, brilliant.
So you take care of yourself on your travels and whatever you're doing, and hope to bump into you at some point.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right.
No doubt at all.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Right, Juliette, and you as well. Thank you again. Cheers.
Thank you.
Night, everybody, and thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm David Young on the Paranormal UK Radio Network again on Paranormal Dimensions. Thank you. Bye-bye. Night.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.